Hello, my name is Sarah Tedder, and today I'll be talking to you about sustainability through solar panels. A solar panel is a structure that takes energy from the sun and turns it into energy that we can use as a renewable source here on the earth. This is in comparison to non-renewable sources such as fossil fuels like gas and coals, because eventually one day our world will run out of fossil fuels. And when that happens, if we don't have a backup plan, then we're going to be stuck. It'll really affect the tourism industry as a whole and just our livelihoods. But with the backup of a solar panel system, and if we increase this now, it will make our fossil fuels last a lot longer. So a little bit about a solar panel. It was developed first in the 1950s, but it wasn't that great, and so they continued to develop it. In the 1970s, President Carter actually ordered for some to be brought to the White House, but people couldn't afford them, so you didn't see many of them out in the world. So they continued to develop. In 2004, the California governor asked that, he said he wanted to see at least 1 million roofs with solar panels on them by the year 2017. And then in 2010, President Obama asked for some more to be brought to the White House to make them more popular. So they began to develop and become more popular within our society. Now I'm sure you see them on top of roofs in some places. You may see them out in a field, a big field full of solar panels, getting that energy and converting it for us. So I want to talk to you first about the effects of solar panels. The first effect would be that there would be less carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas emissions in the environment. So that'll be good for our environment, but also it'll be good for our respiratory systems because we won't be breathing in that stuff every day. It'll save us money, whether that is in, if you have an electric car and gas, if that's in your monthly light bill, not using the fossil fuels will eventually save you money. It'll help with global warming because we will reduce the amount of fossil fuels we'll be using, so it'll make this last longer. It'll increase jobs. There's predicted to be more jobs in the solar energy field than in the coal production fields right now. And then also it eliminates oil imports from other countries. So for me, I was only thinking about how this would affect America, but it's important to think on a bigger scale. And so for developing countries like third world countries, this could help them develop a lot faster and help that process speed up to where they could be thriving a lot faster. Another place is in Europe, in Poland, for example. So one of the research examples I studied was in Poland, and it's the installation of solar panels there. So at first they were only using 1.8% of solar energy to heat their water, which really isn't a lot. And then their government saw that this was kind of a problem in the rural areas. So they said that they would pay 70% of the installation for solar panels in rural Poland. So they began to see an increase, and this research group actually sent out a survey and asked what changed, what kind of effects happened after the solar panels were installed. They found that their monthly electric bill was cheaper, their air quality was better, and there were less ashes in the landfill because in Poland they mainly burn coal to use as an energy source. The other research example that I studied was the photovoltaic systems. It's just a fancy word for saying the solar panel systems, the official name, I guess you could say. So building them and disposing of the systems. So when building these photovoltaic systems, we need to consider the energy we're using to build the devices. So people were using the fossil fuels to produce the solar panels, which would then eventually conserve on the fossil fuels. But the study I looked at actually said that we should be using things like wind, the renewable sources, to produce these photovoltaic systems. And then when disposing of them, eventually it is time to replace them. They get out of date, years go by. And so when it's time for that, they're just going to waste. And so it's important. A study I read was talking about the importance of recyclable material being used to develop these systems so that when it is time to waste them, they can be recycled. They actually use lead acid batteries in them to for storage and other things. And 97% of those batteries are recycled. And from those batteries come like a lead paste that helps the environment and some other like chemical stuff, I guess. And then also another research example I studied was in the tourism industry with automobiles and aircrafts. So first I'm going to talk about aircrafts. With aircrafts, in 2010, the first aircraft was built with solar panels, and they would use like the daylight to save and charge it so that it could fly at night as well. And that happened, and it like flew at night for over 9 hours with the first aircraft with solar panels. And then I read about the development of like the solar panels on the wings of aircrafts. So with that, the lighter an aircraft is, the easier it is to fuel. And so the less fuels it will need to make it fly and make it go longer. So within a solar panel, there's like the panel, and then there's what they call a damping layer. And so I read a research study about the damping layer and making it just a lot more efficient, for a lot lighter for the flight so that it's easier to fuel. So it's important to consider that layer. Right now, aircrafts are responsible for 2 to 3% of the emissions of gas in the air that we are breathing in daily, which is kind of crazy. So if we cut back on the fossil fuels and use more solar power to fuel aircrafts, then we will be breathing in less, and it will also probably be a lot cheaper for flights. So airlines won't have to charge as much, which could see an increase in tourism then as an effect from that. And while they do use gas as a fossil fuel, they also use oil and other ones as well. And then automobiles, so you're not gonna like drive around and see a solar panel on top of a car, but electric cars use charging stations, and solar panels are used to give those charging stations energy. So with that, there's a few like negative sides to electric cars. 60 to 120 miles is how far you can go on a full charged car, where a gas car, you can go about 300 miles. So they're a lot more popular in urban areas when you have to go short distances. Also, charging stations they're being more developed, but they weren't very popular, like spaced out, so you couldn't go on a road trip in an electric car. But there is a statistic that says if you are driving an electric car, you'll save anywhere from around $632 in gas a year, which is a drastic amount of money, I would say. So those are developing, and there are more charging stations being put in around the world, especially I know by Tesla. So hopefully we'll see an increase in that. So some next steps for you. Education. Learning more about solar panels and nuclear energy is so important, and also telling the people around you, and then supporting the steps that are being taken towards the natural energy already. So whether that could look like you carpooling to class, or buying an electric car, or even convincing your parents to put solar panels on the roof. Whatever it is, it'd be cool to see us support that and go green a little bit. So a quote I want to leave you with that really inspired me and made me think a little bit deeper about this was, if we could capture all of the sun's energy shining on the earth for just 1 hour, we could power the entire world for 1 year. Y'all have a great night.